So about my husband, um, I'm the one that left the marriage in April of 2015. Unfortunately, not long after we met, he got sick and bit by a tick, which basically took his pre-existing conditions of asthma and allergies and accelerated them through the roof. Now, again, back then, doctors never even would even think about something like that. They were like, no, 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 this ain't tick. They did say he had Rocky Mountain spotted fever in the hospital. They never found the tick to diagnose it. Anyway, he gets sick. 14 months later, he ends up becoming completely debilitated and having to quit work. And it was a life and death struggle with him, watching him suffer to breathe. I mean, watching somebody suffer to breathe is the most awful. And again, my PTSD and all the things that I've seen made it even more challenging for me to be able to watch him struggle, right? Maybe if it was some quote unquote, and excuse me, normal person that didn't experience that level of trauma as a child, I would have been able to handle it better. But I've never been around anybody that had chronic illness. Everybody that I've been around in my life died instantly, or an overdose, or stabbing, shooting, run over, shot. I mean, all of that was like instant. And other than my Aunt Linda, who died from cancer, thankfully I was not around her and watched her sick, but I can feel the energy when I seen my family when we were there to say goodbye, and I can just tell how much the toll it took on their emotions. And she was 18 when I passed away. When she passed away, I was 18. I had just graduated high school, and she signed my yearbook. But about my husband, again, there's lots of stories, and I'll go down a couple roads back. I had to leave. It wasn't an overnight decision. I was diagnosed with cancer in November 2010 after a 3-year battle of trying to figure out what was wrong with my digestive system. I had just the most awful situation. I mean, yes, I was under a lot of stress. I worked 2 jobs for 8 years. I was keeping the family going while Tommy was sick, but he was a great stay-at-home dad. I remember when he vacuumed the floors for 8 hours and was so proud of himself. But that diagnosis of cancer, even though it's told to me it's the best cancer you can get diagnosed, now again, you're dealing with somebody that has a tough time with emotional control. When I was a kid, everybody knew me as a crybaby. All I did was cry, 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 cry. And it only took until the last 10 years to figure out why I did that. I cried because I couldn't handle the energy of everybody else around me and explain it. Because I would sit there and go, I don't understand why I'm crying all the time. I'm not sad. But then I figured it out. My mom was a victim of domestic violence. I grew up in poverty. We didn't have hot water for 10 years. We had very slow trickling water. Again, I'll get more into those details, but I'm getting back on my husband. But I got diagnosed with cancer. I actually was not even going to do anything about it. I'm going to throw a funny in here because to change the light of the mood. So the hospital I was diagnosed was a UNC hospital in Chapel Hill. I was living in Siler City at the time. We were living with my mother-in-law. I actually had a nervous breakdown a year prior from a job that I was so overworked and exhausted that I had a nervous breakdown. So we were living with my mother-in-law in the process of trying to sell the house. And being diagnosed with that cancer, I remember it as clear as day. I was standing in the bedroom and the doctor asked me if I was sitting down. And I just remember hearing my cousin Arlene, who is also not with me today. She died young at 46. And I knew the news was not going to be good. And I was by myself. I sat down and was told I had carcinoid cancer. Again, if you look it up, it's a zebra cancer, Now, again, back then in 2010, they didn't even have any inkling about what it was or how it starts or anything like that. It was very unknown in the United States. Less than 1% of any cancer patient had this type of cancer. Lo and behold, 2 months later, find out Steve Jobs had the parent of the cancer, which is a PNET, which is a pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor, and he was retiring and stepping down. That was in January of 2011. So anywho, to get back, I didn't want to have the treatment. I took off for 7 days, went to my best friend in Philadelphia, stayed there for 7 days through Thanksgiving. And over that time of that 2 years, I did a lot of thinking of things I never got to do in my life. I never got to travel. I never got to experience a very deep meaning of like true love. And again, this is back when I didn't understand most of the problems were me. I was the problem. I could not really fully, truly, deeply love him for what he deserved. And he knew that. I told him that. I never held that from him. I used to tell him all the time to find somebody that can love him like he loves me, because it's not fair to him. But in the years of us being together, he became my best friend. And I'm talking like best friend. And I left him in April of 2015. I ended the marriage. I told him I have to move on. The hardest part for me with him was he was such a giver. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to normal nurturing. He grew up in a Leave It to Beaver family. Wasn't used to that. His love language, acts of service. Mine was physical touch, and he wasn't much of a physical touch person. He had trauma too. And so that was a lot of the things. Quality time, that was our thing. We were together all the time. And that wasn't a problem for me, actually. I enjoyed my time with him. But I was set out on this like emotional, I got to find somebody. I got to figure this out. I need to find myself. Who am I? Get out there and date, like really date. And find myself, my career. Who am I? What do I like? Travel, find places. And it was hard for him to accept it, my family as well. My kids were older, but still, we had a young granddaughter, and we vowed that we were definitely going to stay friends, regardless of what happened with relationships or whatnot. We were going to stay best friends. And I had the surgery in September of 2012. It got serious. I started having almost about 95% blockage of the tumor in my ileum. And I had the surgery the day before my grandbaby was born, my little Bella. Sadie will tell you, and probably my son as well. She was a miracle that came in to help me fight when I wasn't strong enough to fight for myself. And oh, I'm so grateful for her. She'll be 13 in a few weeks. But I got to spend so much great time with her. I never had the experience of having grandparents. But I vowed to be the best grandma I could be. And me and Tommy vowed for that. He had a great grandmother. He had a great grandmother relationship. And Mama Libby was the best. And she's not with us anymore. But I would say, am I still trying to find myself? Somewhat. But I have never realized how much I did need to grow and be who I am and give back to what I wanted to do in life and work to feel emotions and love and just be me. And he said to me several times, he's a huge supporter of my independence, my business that we have with our daughter. He's actually my bookkeeper. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother story. He wouldn't do the finances when we were married, even though I begged him multiple times, and he ends up becoming the best bookkeeper of our business. So go figure that. Talk about ironic, right? And he's a huge supporter of what I do, and he's very proud of what I've accomplished, and he just wants me to be happy. Whatever that entails, I don't know, but I am very happy. One of the things about trauma is when you have to step back and truly find you and love yourself so unconditionally. Because if you cannot love yourself unconditionally, don't expect anybody to come in and try to fix you and love you. That is a hard thing to put on somebody else. So love yourself so unconditionally. I even go out and date myself. I'm serious. I go out and date myself. I sometimes I get on my own damn nerves all the time. I say that to myself. I get irritated with myself because I'm like, girl, straighten your shit up, right? But one of the things I learned is love myself unconditionally. All my flaws, all my strengths, I don't call them weaknesses. I don't like that word. It's flaws. And we have to work on, you go two things with weaknesses. You either strengthen them or you stop, right? Because you can't be good at everything. You can't be perfect at everything. You can't have a strength in everything. So just give that up. Like, learn to give that up and find what makes your strength stronger, and just grow with that. And that's what I did. And I just kept doing it and being the best person I can be. Boy, I will tell you what, the first time I ever had to get on camera, I was so nervous. That's not something I like. I'm a very private person. But Pasha was the first one that got me actually on a camera for my business. But it's a different type of camera and appearance, right? That's for your business. You're promoting, you're marketing yourself, you're showing people what you can do for them and how you can help them make money and be better at their business. Because a lot of people don't care about that back end stuff, the back end financials and programming your software. Their passion is the front end, right? The passion is what they do. And my daughter taught me that. She was a young age, in her early 20s, and she said to me one day, Mom, I want to start my own business. And she did it part-time, and we grew, and now she's part of Scory, and she has just does that as she can. But anywho, what I want to say is, when Tommy got sicker, he ended up with cryptococcal meningitis, and it was undiagnosed. The doctors had tunnel vision. Brianna and I fought so hard to get the doctors to see what was really going on. It was one doctor, his primary care doctor, actually looked at him and knows how strong-willed Tommy is, and knew Tommy couldn't even communicate. There was no communication. And we have a very small family. But what happened, unfortunately, because the doctors did not take it seriously, and they could have solved the problem with a spinal tap. And by the time we really, really pushed and pushed and pushed, after the third hospital visit, 2 hospital stays, emergency room visit, he had 2 small strokes. They kept focusing on that, by the way. He ended up deaf. And so he can't hear us, can't communicate with us, can't hear our granddaughter's voice change. He has isolated himself to some degree, but I still see shines of the Tommy that I know. Now, one thing about Tommy, and a lot of people will tell you, is he's very hardcore on the exterior. Let me tell you, he's so hardcore on the exterior that when we were together in our early years, he has a habit of yelling. And unfortunately, that's a lot of the reasons why I could not stay married to him, because yelling, and it was a form of abuse, just awful, horrible abuse as a child from my mom's boyfriend, stepfather. not my current stepfather, my one who was in my life for 23 years, he was a yeller, and so was Tommy. And he couldn't grasp the understanding and the depths of how bad it was for me to hear him constantly yell, to the point that people that I worked with actually thought I was an abuse. Now, they know the history of my son's father, biological sperm donor, and they just all thought I was being another victim of domestic violence because, right, it follows, the pattern follows. And this isn't one job, this was 3 jobs I was at that literally thought he was abusing me. And he wasn't. He never abused me. Now, yes, the yelling is a form of verbal abuse. I get it, emotional abuse. That is true. But the physical, he never physically hit me. But that yelling was a form of emotional abuse. And I would tell him that, like, you got to stop the yelling. It's very tough for me. But anyway, there's no fault to him. We are still best of friends. I will always love him the way that I need to love him. Neither one of us ever got into a relationship or married again, which is ironic. A lot of people say that. But he's still there for me to this day. If he can do it, he will. I'm an hour and a half away now, but if he's able to make it, he will. He has helped me in all my multiple moves. And that's a funny story. I think I've moved 13 times since being in North Carolina. And 10 years being single and learning how to put things together and build and create. And I never forget the time that I moved into the house that I'm working on selling now, and he bought me tools, power tools. 15, 20 years ago, people would never have done that. I would have cut my finger off. Look, y'all, that's from a football when I was 15, 16 years old, and it still never got really fixed. I was not the sports person. I was not the pick up the tools kind of girl. Now, I'll pick up a chainsaw. I'll pick up an axe. I'm a little afraid of axes, though. I'm not good at coordination, but I will pick up whatever I can pick up to repair stuff. And I love building. I love building things and fixing things. And I thank a lot of that for Tommy, too. And I call him my husband. People heard a woman say this. My old neighbor said it one time about her daughter called her ex's husbands. And I said to her, I got to steal that because I'm over here calling my Tommy a former because I didn't like the name X. X to me was like an example. Like, no, he's not an example of what not to marry, right? And most people refer to their ex in a negative tone, and I didn't want that for him. And so I kept using the name former. He's my former. But then at a point, I had somebody say to me one time, well, is he gone? Is he passed away? Because a lot of people know he was sick the whole time, right? He was sickly. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, he's not. He's not dead. He's still with us. And they're like, why do you call him former? I'm like, well, because he's not an example. He's an ex. So when my neighbor mentioned that word Wasband, I said, I got to steal that and find out it's an urban thing, right? So he was my husband. And that's why I will always call him my husband, because he's not an example and he's surely not a former. So I just wanted to share that with y'all of my story in my marriage and how I tried. And will I ever get married again? A lot of people ask me that. Now it's been 10 years. I don't know. It's I'm working still to heal and be me. I'm very strong-minded now. I'm set in my ways. I am a cat lady. I call myself the new age cat lady. I'm still building my career, my business, and I'm still wanting to make a difference in other entrepreneurs' lives and most importantly, help others like you who have been bullied and just don't know how to get out of it, how to understand it, how to move on. I can and will help you through my stories. I know I will. I've told my stories on the sidelines for decades. And people would say to me, Tina, you need to write a book. You need to start a podcast. You need to start a YouTube. And I'm like, no, all of us have these trials and tribulations that we deal with. This is part of our existence here on this earth. What is my story any different than any others? And a lot of people say, because you've overcome not just bullying, but so much more than that. And okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. But the most important thing is being bullied is a whole different level than anything else. It is something that transitions as you get older into other forms of bullying. As an adult, bullying is different. A lot of people call it, workplace toxic workplace. There is workplace bullying still to this day. And are we ever going to stop it? Probably not. But what's the one thing I always tell everybody that talks to me about it in the sidelines, not on social media, but all the years that I've ever talked to anybody, and anybody that's watching this that has heard my stories in the decades, I always say you can control the world within you. You cannot control the world around you. And as long as you work on yourself and know it's a them problem and not a you problem, you can overcome. And the number one thing you want to do is surround yourself with quality circle, not quantity. Because not everybody is out here to be your friend, and not everybody is out here to do good by you. Some of the most best people I've ever met were not some of the best people I've ever met. If that makes, you'll hear more. But learn to trust your instincts and your gut, and date yourself. Love yourself unconditionally. Dance naked in the house. I won't even tell you how great that is. And just be you. Just be who you are. Be genuine, authentic, and what I heard this term, WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and that is exactly what you get with me. And I just wanted to say, thank you, Tommy, my Wasband. I know you can't hear my voice, but thank you for all the love you've given me. And continue. I don't know why I deserve it. Maybe you're the reason for this path too. But I thank you for letting me spread my wings. I will always love you in the way that I can. And you know that. So thank you. This is for you.